Hello and welcome to the Gooner Talk, back again with you guys for another episode of what is the Arsenal Transfer Show. Joining you every morning at 8 a.m. UK time. Hope you're doing good. Hope you're doing well. Thank you as always for making this a part of your morning routines. It is very much appreciated. Hope that you had a fantastic start to your day and week as we embark upon what is the first week of the US tour. We'll talk about that very shortly. But first of all, make sure you do drop a like on the video. Subscribe to the channel if you are indeed new around here and turn those notifications on so you never miss a show. But most of all, you know the shows are at 8 a.m. UK time every single day. So let's crack on with today's mornings. As always, Carlton, good morning to you, to Stephen, to Gooner Jake, good morning to Clock Orange, Jimbo, Pat, good morning, Olawale, Peter, we've got Johnny, Nav, Creeper Fan, we've got Paul, Dara, we've got Tom, Maximius, Emmanuel, and plenty more of you guys as well. Thank you to everybody that's been tuning in. It is very much appreciated. Let's go into today's stories. Here is the traveling squads for yesterday's flight. The plane was at the airport, the Emirates plane, of which Declan Rice and Urian Timber and the like were treated to luxuries that perhaps they have not encumbered upon, or rather encountered since their move to Arsenal. Step up. You know, it's class is what we've got going on. And certainly it was a very, very good looking plane indeed, of which they looked very comfortable and in good spirits as they do indeed embark on this trip to the United States across the pond. I can tell you that the squads in full is as follows: Aaron Ramsdale, William Saliba, Kieran Tierney, Ben White, Gabriel, Bukayo Saka, Martin Odegaard, Gabriel Jesus, Gabriel Martinelli, Urian Timber, Alex Runnison, Eddie Nketiah, Jakub Kivior, Rob Holding, Takahiro Tomiyasu, Leandro Trossard, Jorginho, Fabio Vieira, Mohamed El Neni, Folarin Balogun, Marquinhos, Kai Havertz, Karl Hein, Austin Trusty, Alexander Zinchenko, Declan Rice, and Mario Koscielny. That is the full list. Now, there is an expectation of some changes, but there is also explanations for some absences. You may have noticed that there is no Reiss Nelson on this trip. Reiss Nelson is unfortunately injured and will not be taking part in the tour. This comes right after he signed that brand new contract in which he talked in his interview about hoping to be fit and hoping to get back ready. And already there is a problem. We're not sure as to the fine details of the issue, at least I'm not anyway, but we are aware that unfortunately he has suffered a bit of an injury. We don't know the extent of it. We're trying to work that out, and he's going to be working on getting back to full fitness back in the UK. So we got to hope that it's not too much of a problem. Emile Smith-Rowe is expected to join up with the group next week, as is Thomas Partey. Both of them are expected to join up with the squad next week. We know that Smith-Rowe, of course, was taking part in the under-21s Euros, winning that tournament, in fact, as well. So all of those, plus Smith-Rowe and Partey, will be in the States as of, well, this week now. This news came out yesterday, being Sunday. So this week, we expect, late this week, for both Smith-Rowe and Partey to be part of the group. Nicolas Pepe and Sambi Lokonga, though, have both also missed out through injury. Both of them are injured. We know that Lokonga missed the trip to Germany because of injury. Pepe, too, suffered with some serious injury issues at the end of last season. He played something like 4 games since January for Nice. It was a really, really bad end to the season for him fitness-wise, and clearly is still facing those issues and those injury problems. So sadly, Lokonga, Reiss Nelson, and Nicolas Pepe all not fit enough to travel for the US tour. Other players, Ethan Nwaneri, Miles Lewis-Skelly, Rule Waters, were not chosen. It's my understanding that they were made aware of this as kind of a pre-planned thing. Mario Koscielny was going to go on the US tour, and the aforementioned trio of youngsters was going to go on the Germany trip to play Nuremberg. So they got their minutes, their time, and now Mario Koscielny, who is thought of as being further along in his development, Koscielny. So there is an expectation that we'll see plenty of him, and he's been impressing, significantly impressed for the youth FA Cup youth sides. He's impressed for the under-21s as well. And Koscielny did, of course, feature on the bench a number of times in the Premier League last season. So he most likely took Reiss Nelson's place. If that, I mean, there was an argument that probably the group had already been selected, and even with Reiss Nelson not travelling, they didn't replace him in the squad. So a shame on those counts of injuries, but hopefully we get more back in the future and get some more information about those injuries as well. Moving into transfers then, just a couple of stories to address this morning before we move to part two and your questions. First of all, Arsenal had targeted Xavi Simons. However, he has chosen to return to PSG. PSG, of course, activated that €6 million buyback clause that was inserted into his contract. Why PSV allowed such a low buyback clause to be inserted into that deal, I have absolutely no idea why they did that. But PSG have been able to bring back a very, very good talent after spending what has effectively been a small loan deal away in the Netherlands. He, though, will, it seems, leave on loan, because the idea is that if both Mbappe and Neymar stay at the club, and there's an expectation, I think at this stage at least, that probably that will happen. It doesn't seem like neither of them are moving on, even with all the talk around Mbappe. Xavi Simons will move. Would Arsenal sign him on loan? I doubt it, but the favourites to sign Xavi Simons on loan is Leipzig right now. So sadly, for all those Arsenal fans that were hoping to see Xavi Simons in an Arsenal shirt, there were genuine links, there was interest from the club, but nothing moved, nothing changed. And now it is expected that he will leave on loan and go to RB Leipzig. And lastly, we finally got some words from Bitello, the Gremio midfielder that we've been linked to. The Gremio president, speaking to Zona Mista, said there are a lot of people watching Bitello, but there is no proposal, even to reassure our fans at the moment. So we heard those reports last week. I reported them while I was away on holiday in the New Forest, that a Brazilian outlet had said that Arsenal had sent over a delegation to make a proposal. The president of the club coming out and saying that there's been no proposals made, which kind of rubbishes those side of things, I suppose. And then speaking to Get French Football News, or rather via Get French Football News, Bitello has been seen speaking about his future. He said, it seems that an offer has arrived, apparently from Monaco, but I haven't spoken to my coach about it yet. I am happy and focused on Gremio. The upcoming championship is thrilling, is what he said. So it seems that Arsenal aren't being talked about for Bitello whatsoever at this moment in time, even though there was those reports from Brazil last week suggesting that an entire proposal could have been being made. Does this mean that there's no truth in this story? Not necessarily. Arsenal like to do their business very quietly. They've got really good relationships with Brazilian clubs and Brazilian players through Edu as well. And we know that we've heard about things getting, not pushed under the carpet somewhat, but kind of kept on the down low when it comes to Arsenal and talking about the situation down in Brazil. So that's where we're at with Bitello. That's where we're at with our transfer targets as well. And we look forward to seeing what happens in the next coming weeks or so. As we've talked about, I think that the idea of transfers is going to be very much predicated on people leaving before we see people move in. But who knows? We'll have to wait and see. Right then, let's go to part two and your questions right after this. Right then, it is, as promised, being Monday, the day in which we can announce that the general sale for the Gooner Talk Live podcast is now available. You can come along and watch us in the Mildmay Club in Newington Green in London, North London, very close to Highbury indeed, very Arsenal area indeed. Really, really happy that we've managed to lock down this venue for the 13th, the Sunday, the 13th of August. That's the day after Arsenal's first Premier League game against Nottingham Forest. There's a link down in the description. There is a link for those that also are in the chat box this morning. You can pick up your tickets through the link that is in the chat box as well. It's fantastic to see such a pickup from the members in our Discord server yesterday. But there are plenty of tickets for you guys to go and grab as well for those that are not in our Discord server. But it is a case of a limited seating. So if you are considering coming, I would recommend getting your tickets as soon as feasibly possible. You don't want to miss out because there is, as I say, a limited capacity to the venue. And once it's sold out, it's sold out. So please do. Regarding a lineup, regarding our panelists, I'll be releasing details about who will be coming on the podcast in the next couple of weeks or so. So make sure you stay tuned to find out who is going to be joining me in the room and meeting plenty of you guys in North London in just under a month's time. So I look forward to hopefully hearing back from plenty of you. And thank you to those that have sent messages about those that are already and have bought tickets. It'll be fantastic to see and meet as many of you as possible. Let's go to Matt G. Says, Tom, do you think Arsenal's transfer strategy would be different if we had won the league? I think that there may have been potential for some more spending, maybe. I don't know how different it would be. It's a really good question, Matt, actually, because to theorise what we might have done differently, would we have seen a more top-level striker come in? Would the club felt there would have been as much of a need? If they've got a squad that they think has won the league, do they think that there'd be a reason to push as much as we have to try and close the gap? I suppose you can look at it from two directions. So difficult. But I think that certainly we are as a club moving in a certain direction, and no matter what would have happened last season, we would have, I think, taken this step. I suppose maybe missing out on Champions League football again would have had a negative impact on what we could have done, but still, I'm looking forward to seeing what happens between now and the end of the window. Jane says, hey, Tom, hope you're well. I wanted to ask if you think that we have brought in too many players or too little for the MLS tour, and who do you think we should have brought in for the tour? I think we've taken the right number of players. The only issue I do have, I think, I think that bringing in, say, Austin Trusty instead of Raw Waters is a bit of an odd one. I know Trusty's future is, pretty much decided. He's going to move. We expect Austin Trusty to leave unless things dramatically change. And Raw Waters' future is very much an Arsenal thing. So I would have liked to have seen that instead. Alex Runnisson's inclusion, though, is another interesting one. Maybe I suppose they're keeping him fit, getting him in the shop window, maybe potentially as well, to try and get him a sale. That could be an option as well. That is what pre-season is also used for, is getting players into shop windows and hopefully advertising them to any potential clubs that are interested in buying them. Let's go to Roger says £22. You should be wearing a mask. £22. You should see how much it costs for the venue, Roger. Patrick says, will you have an FPL league? Yes, we will. We will have a new FPL league. It's something that we set up closer to the start of the season. Certainly, we will have that, so don't you worry. Christopher says, Tom, do you know of any podcasts that focus on the Arsenal youth team? I don't know if there's any dedicated shows to the Arsenal youth side of things. We do and did a show on the youth side of things. It wasn't wildly popular, I'll be honest, and it is a lot of time and effort putting in the resources to do it. So we dialed back on the youth side of things last season and did more to do with the loan players last season instead. But I don't know about anyone specific. Maybe people in the chat box can let you know. Or maybe Arsenal Vision does something to do with the youth of their Patreon. But I don't know about specific podcasts for the youth side of things that are dedicated solely to that. Let's go to Napafire. Says, Tom, losing Partey would be a mistake. I think the poor form at the end of last season is perhaps clouding people's judgment. Do you agree that we need that experience? Again, I talked about experience the other day. I don't think experience is what there's a massive desire for. I think we've got lots of experience. I think, Declan Rice is coming in having played more Premier League matches than Thomas Partey, so experience is there in abundance for Arsenal. I think losing Partey, when we're talking about from the football side of things, how much you're losing in that player's quality, it's a lot if you let him go. And I would have liked to have seen Partey and Rice stay, as a dynamic to see what we would use them for in terms of going to Anfield or playing City or going to Old Trafford. I feel like using Partey and Rice would have given us a real good foundation in the midfield. If he goes, we have to make sure that we replace him. It's as simple as that. Balaj says, Tom, Trossard played as left 8/10 and also a wide left mid at times in the recent warm-up game. Is this a sign of a change in tactics? I think that it is. Obviously, losing Granit Xhaka means that left 8-10 role is going to be changing. I think Havertz, as we can imagine, is going to take that. I think he's going to take that role. And because of that, we are in a situation where Trossard also fits that mold, and so will, I think, be used. And I think the longer Trossard's time at Arsenal goes on, the longer he moves into the kind of the 30s kind of age bracket, I think Trossard's position will drop more into the midfield, a little bit like Santi Cazorla did. Napafy says there's no Cedric either. No, he has not been taken. I don't know if that's to do with an injury. I've certainly not heard that it's to do with an injury. So I think that's more to do with maybe a transfer. But let's wait and see. Wesbird says, how significant an emphasis do you put on preseason friendly results? I think it's more about the performance. But what I would say is that last season we won all of our preseason official fixtures and friendlies. We didn't win all the ones behind closed doors, but all the ones that we played against Nuremberg and then Chelsea and Everton and Orlando and Sevilla, we won all those games, and that gave us some really good momentum, going into the brand new season. So I think it's important to win your preseason games still, but it's more the performance that I look at, because all the changes, all the subs do create a bit of chaos when it comes to these games. Arteta didn't change, too much either. It didn't change too much at all. So I'm not expecting there to be vast amounts of changes in the team when it comes to subs. We might in the early games see some, like, one team in the first half, one team in the second half, but I think that there's more likely to be, we'll see kind of subs the closer we get to the season that are more akin to what we would see during actual Premier League games, because he wants to maximise the preparations for his best 11 for that opening game against Nottingham Forest. Men says, Nuno Tavares was also not included. Do you think he'll be sold? Yes, there's no plans for Tavares for next season as far as I'm aware. So, no. There'll be no plans for that. Cody says, Tom, how many minutes do you think Smith Rowe will get this season, assuming that he has a good preseason and stays fit? Will he have the problems of getting in start 11? He'll absolutely have problems, getting into the start 11. He's going to face the challenges that loads of people have faced trying to get into the starting 11. That's simply where we stand in that regard, So, yes, there's going to be problems for him. But if he's good enough, if he's fit enough, if he's showing quality when he gets his opportunities, then he won't have as many problems, because Arteta will reward those that deserve that time. When you've seen players like Martinelli get back into his plans, Granit Xhaka turn around his career, when Trossard started playing really well and getting into the team, Arteta will reward players based upon their performances. So if Smith Rowe can show what he's capable of, he will get that minutes and will get that time. Lloyd says, great show, Tom. Thanks, mate. Did you listen to TalkSport this morning? Jamie O'Hara is calling Reiss a good player. Before we got him, he was calling him a world-class player in the future of England. Sad day for football commentary. I think you know Jamie O'Hara's game. I don't think I need to tell you why his view on Declan Rice has changed. I remember watching the clip of him with Jason Cundy talking about how it was, Arsenal are up there, but they're going to miss out again. Look, Jamie O'Hara is designed to wind you up. That is what he's about. He couldn't do it on the football field, that's for sure. But he's designed to wind you up in the radio studio, and it's working. It's working for people like yourself because you're talking about him. But there you go. If anything, you should feel sorry for him. He's a Spurs fan. There's a reason to feel sorry for anyone. It's because they support Spurs. Chris says, hey, Tom, great content. Thank you for always doing great shows. Is there any news on links to the new staff to take over the ones that are leaving? Nothing yet, Chris. I don't know if there's anything internally. We have seen some internal promotions around Edu, for instance, but I've not seen anything regarding the coaching staff other than Hussein Issa, the Techers guru who joined us, who's our new attacking coach. He's been added to the group. You've probably seen him as the one with the small ponytail that you see at the back as well. So yeah, that's what you can come to expect from that side of things. But I've heard nothing on further additions that are needed to be made. Ghost Bella says, are you still angry with my comment? I don't know what comment you're talking about, to be honest. So no is the answer. Holdini says, Tom, how can we sell Rob Holding when he has achieved the same or more than Alexis Sanchez at Arsenal? We got back into the Champions League under Rob Holding's leadership. Why do fans want him to be sold? I am sensing some satire there from Holdini, Gooner legend. A big fan of Rob Holding. And who can blame you? He's won 2 FA Cups with brilliant cup final performances. But I think we know that he needs to move on to get game time for him and others as well. Stuart McFarlane says, Tom, if we could sign one more player this summer, which position would that player be in? For me, I think it's still probably midfield, because I think Partey, the likelihood is that he might move on, it seems. So central midfield remains my primary desire to see somebody brought in. Let's go to Poet says, do you think that it's sad to see Milinkovic-Savic leave for Saudi Arabia instead of Arsenal or another Premier League team? I do, because I think that he would have taken the Premier League by storm. Is it interesting, though? I like Milinkovic-Savic. I think he's got class. I think he's got real ability. And I think he's a quality player. But is there something to be said about the fact that nobody ever came in for him? No Premier League club never came in this summer, last summer. You know, he stayed at Lazio for a long time despite playing really well. And you have to question why. Is it because he just didn't fit? Maybe that role that he had at Lazio was so specific. There we go. For Milinkovic-Savic, that it just maybe wouldn't have fit elsewhere. Maybe that was the reason. It's a very, very enigmatic player. So I'm not sure if it would have worked anywhere else. And maybe that's why no one else ever came in, even for what seemed a relatively respectable transfer fee, I think, in the end. Let's go to Christopher says, Tom, can you see Martinelli and Nelson as left wing options? Trossard is an 8, Saka and Vieira as the right wing options. I think Nelson will cover both wings. I think that Trossard will cover options at left and potentially at 10 and maybe on the right. He played right wing against Leeds, remember. Vieira is obviously very versatile, can play in a number of positions. I think Saka's kind of competition is a really difficult position to fill, even with a transfer. Trying to convince someone that you're going to be playing in competition with Saka, very, very difficult. Very, very difficult indeed to try and find a resolution for that. Let's go to Marcus says, I think that shows how much we've grown and the type of talent they have to look at versus what we used to look at. I assume that the growth of players and the talent that we have in terms of what's in the squad and what we develop internally is really key to the kind of the dynamic of the group. If you're able to improve individual talents coming through, especially your own Highlanders, whether you sell them or keep them, that can look really good on what's on the books. In terms of what we used to look at from outside, we used to sign players like Lichtsteiner. We used to sign players that were more ready, Willian as well at the start of Arteta's career. And I think that's Cedric even as well, Marie to an extent also. And that's obviously shifted. We've really changed the way in which we bring players in and we look to kind of develop them and within house. And I think that's buy low, sell high, or buy low and get much better performances than what you bought them for. The investments that we've made have been very, very, very good indeed. Wonton Soup says, news of Nelson's injury sucks. He just can't stay fit enough to compete. Absolutely. It does suck. Really, really does. I hope it's only a minor problem and it's kind of sorted almost immediately. Daniel Roberts says, I hate this thing that Saka needs cover in competition. He's been unbelievable so far without this. Salah has never really had competition at right wing at Liverpool. World-class players don't necessarily need it. I hear what you're saying, Dan. And it's interesting to look at kind of Mohamed Salah's injury record because he's been basically fit consistently and all the time. What I would say is that Liverpool have done work in the market, to try and address those things. They brought in Fabio Carvalho. Of course, you probably remember they've got Diogo Jota who can play across any of those front three positions. Luis Diaz is a left winger but has played on the other side. But Salah's not had an injury since 2019-20 when he missed one game with an ankle problem. Before that, it was an 18-19 issue where he had a concussion. And that was the only issue. He's missed 3 games. One of them was through COVID, and 2 of them are through very minor issues. And Saka is in a similar boat at the moment where he's not, touch wood, getting injured. If that was to change, obviously then it's a different kettle of fish. And if Salah was injured or faced an injury, then maybe we'd be having a different conversation. But what I would say is that Liverpool have got players like Jota. They had Fabio Carvalho before he left for RB Leipzig. Or leaving for RB Leipzig, that for me anyway, they did the work to make sure they covered that area. And so because of that, even if Salah was to get injured, they have Jota that can play there. They had Fabio Carvalho that could play. They have Harvey Elliott, who's also played on the right at times. So they have options, perhaps better options than we have if Saka gets injured. I'd say Jota is better than Nelson, better than Trossard. So they are covered. But we have some good options. Nelson is a good player. Trossard is a good player. But it's a real challenge to try and find a player anyway to come in and play that role. You'd have to bring in a Jota type, and we probably did that in Trossard anyway. So I don't necessarily see a burning desire to bring in someone that can cover or / compete with Saka, because I think that it's just too much of a challenge to be able to do that. Vieira, I find, is a very difficult option at that right wing. I don't like Vieira playing right wing. I'm not sure that's the place for him. I very much think he is the Martin Odegaard's competitor and nothing much else. I know he can play in the left eight. I know he can play at right wing, but I think that Vieira for me is a 10, is an attacking midfielder. That's where I think that you would get the best from him. So, yeah, let's see. And Seb says, don't sleep on Marquinhos. It's difficult not to forget about Marquinhos. He's not necessarily impressed. He wasn't that great for Norwich on loan. I think he needs to go on loan again to a higher level, probably a La Liga side maybe for Marquinhos, or a Bundesliga team. That I think maybe the next best step. Championship, I'm not sure that's the right step for Marquinhos next season. I think he should go for another more technical league, maybe Liga. Maybe that's the right route for him. We've got some great experience from sending players to Liga now. Vicky says, is Saka world-class, or is he the Reiss level, just under where it needs to be to play Champions League football and prove himself? For me, Declan Rice is a world-class player. Declan Rice is a world-class level. You look at his stats, you look at his output, you look at his performances, you look at how he's performed for England. He's a world-class player that's been playing for West Ham. And Bukayo Saka, I'd say, is on Declan Rice's level. And I think personally that Declan Rice is world-class. And for that reason, Bukayo Saka for me is a world-class player. Both of them are world-class players. They've done it on the international stage. They've done it in the Premier League. They've played what they can play. They've played in all of those situations. You can only beat what's in front of you. Rice and Saka are world-class, period. I think there was a thing going around that Saka is the most valuable winger in the world. I think I saw a report on the other day. Bear in mind that Aaron Ramsdale is valued at the most valuable goalkeeper in the world. I think Ramsdale's going to have a really tough time in convincing people that he's of a world-class level. I think that Ramsdale is so very, if not already, on the verge of being in that world-class bracket of goalkeepers. I think he's one of the best goalkeepers in the world, Aaron Ramsdale, now. I think he's progressed to that. I think he was playing in teams that never allowed him to express how good he was and never be able to get on that pedestal of goalkeepers. But I think for me, Aaron Ramsdale playing at Arsenal and doing what he's done in the last 2 seasons and being one of the best goalkeepers in the Premier League, having one of the best clean sheet records in the Premier League, he, for me, is up there in the bracket of world-class goalkeepers. That's just where I see Aaron Ramsdale as a goalkeeper now. So, yeah. But world-class is subjective. It's different. And Vicky points out, is Saka therefore up there with Vinicius Jr. and Mbappe? Mbappe, for me, isn't a winger. I look at him very much as a centre-forward that can play in wide areas and is obviously world-class. Vinicius Jr., if you're picking, for me, a world 11, right, Mohamed Salah is kind of the established late 20s, early 30s. I can't remember even how old Mohamed Salah is. So is he 29? He's 31. Okay, so Salah's 31. He's older than I thought. Salah, you look at and go, that's the right winger you probably pick in most people's world 11s for right wing at the moment. With Vinicius Jr. on the left and Mbappe or Haaland through the middle. You could argue that you'd play Mbappe in a wide area, Haaland up top, and then Vinicius Jr. But for me, Saka is absolutely getting on that level with Vinicius Jr. Yes, absolutely. Is on that level. He's on that school of thought. For me, when you talk about the best wingers in the world, you're talking about Vinicius Jr. and you're talking about Bukayo Saka. Like there's little to no debate for me in this realm. That is just how good Saka is. It's just how good he is. So yeah, he is in the same bracket, same conversation as Vinicius Jr. So there, Salah is more established. Salah is absolutely, I'd say, if you're gonna talk about established quality, Salah is obviously above Saka because he's had that established quality. He's consistent with his goal scoring. He's getting 30+ goal contributions a season. Salah is, without a doubt, a level, not a level above Saka, sorry, but you'd say he's above Saka right now. I don't think there's much debate about that at all. But Saka as a talent, as an age bracket that he is world class, and he can definitely reach. I kind of look at things and go, there is an elite level of very few players, and then you've got this bigger bracket of world class players, and then you've got an even bigger bracket below that of top level players. Saka for me is in the world-class category, and you have Salah and Mbappe in that elite. I put Vinicius Jr. in world-class, at the very top end of the world-class, but both because of his age and because of what he can still do alongside Saka. Both of those two are kind of the top of the world-class level. And then you've got this elite bracket for me above that, which includes the likes of Mbappe, Erling Haaland, Mohamed Salah, that kind of level. So that's why I put him in that to the elite bracket as a level above. But as I say, it's all subjective. It's all opinions. And so if you're putting players into the best category, there's very, very few of those. And then the next category beyond that, it's a bigger bracket. And that's what I'd say is the world-class bracket. The elite bracket is the top one, where you have players like Haaland, Mbappe, etc. Let's go to Sean says, it is the Gooner fan virus, Tom. Other teams have Salah, Haaland, Vinicius, and they revel in their brilliance. Us Gooners have a Saka, and we underrate him bad. I don't think we underrate Saka. Maybe some people do. I certainly don't. So yeah, I don't think so. And Obo points out that True, Saka, and Ødegaard were both nominated amongst the top 20 for Ballon d'Or. Martin Ødegaard is a world-class player, and I've not brought him up. Martin Ødegaard is world-class. Like, again, you'll do very, very little to convince me otherwise that he is world-class, because Martin Ødegaard is of a world-class level. Now 24 years of age, turning 25. Saka as well. Both of them, you're in that world-class category. Absolutely in that world-class category. Anyway, we are going to wrap things up there. Thank you so much for tuning in. For those that are tuning in late, if you can, the link is in today's video description. It's also in your chat box as well. Please do, if you haven't done so already, and you are able to attend, come to our live podcast on the 13th of August, day after the first Premier League match of the season, 6 p.m. at the Mildmay Club in North London. Details about our guests, our panel, is coming out very, very soon indeed. Doors open at 5 o'clock. Show starts at 6. It's going to be an evening event, and I'm very much looking forward to it. There's a bar. There's all of that lovely stuff. So thank you to everybody that's coming along. I can't wait to meet and see so many of you. I can't wait to tell you about our panel that it's going to be, and who's going to be joining us. It's going to be a fantastic and enjoyable event indeed. Tickets are on sale to everybody. Please make sure you go and get them. Link down in the description. And also, if you're listening on Spotify and iTunes, you can also find a link in today's show notes. So make sure you look out for the link there as well. Have a fantastic day. I'll see you again very, very soon. And as always, up the Arsenal.